Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I am here with my cousin and co host.
Dylan.
And today we have a very special guest on the podcast to discuss a movie that came out in the year 2000, the year of our Lord 2000, the year that we were all convinced the computers would shut down on us, that life as we knew it would change. And Dylan, with the release of this movie, perhaps life as we knew it did change. I guess we'll find out. On the podcast today is a very close friend of mine. I wanted to really be intentional about how I introduce him because, I think maybe perhaps people who know us would consider him to be Corey's best friend, but I like to think that we have a relationship all our own. So please welcome to the podcast my friend Francisco Breton.
I'm just so grateful to be here with one of my best friends, Gabrielle Bolin,
Thank
and the
you.
infamous Dylan Pollock.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I feel left out. Frank's my best friend now.
Yeah, no, Gab has in her mind that we're going to be roommates.
I know. I feel like she has set that up, and which makes me
She's-
think
no,
that, quite
she's
frankly,
trying.
by the end of this, I'm gonna hate you.
Well, I could only hope. Can you imagine the movie we make? Two
True.
roommates that like each other, not a good movie.
That's a good point. I also feel like saying the year of our Lord makes it sound like this is like the 700 Club. Like I would have checked out of this podcast if I'm listening, and they say the year of our Lord.
It's
don't
true.
think
I
so.
don't like mentioning Jesus. It's my least favorite part of this movie. I have that written down. It's in one of my notes.
Interesting. Okay. Is it bad that I don't remember when they mentioned Jesus?
It's the Bible thumper guy. His whole character is
Oh,
Praise
sure,
him.
sure, sure. Okay. Okay.
you
Well,
praise his glory, Shane.
without further ado, we are discussing today on this podcast, which you already know because you've seen the title of this episode, the movie The Replacements. Yeah. So, Frank, maybe before we get into it, why don't you tell us what this movie is about?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
The Replacements is an early aughts sports slash comedy slash romance movie because there is a romance subplot. It is a young Keanu Reeves, a young Orlando Jones, John Favreau back when he was still trying to pretend he was hot. And it's just a fun time for the whole family. It's one of those movies you watch when you're a prepubescent boy. You see people get hit, you see cheerleaders, you feel a bunch of emotions, and you learn the importance of winning.
This is that movie
Okay.
you saw on TBS on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's like the kids' Shawshank Redemption. It was always on,
That's a very,
and
very apt comparison that they were always on cable TV.
it's
at
just
some point.
on. And so you either liked it or you decided to watch the last half of the Birdcage on IFC.
Which, by the way, is a movie to watch before you die, despite Dylan claiming it is not.
Not
Oh
according
my
to this
God, I'm
podcast.
fully on Gab's side. Just
Thank you.
clothing alone, Robin Williams defined what style is now in that movie.
I
Look at how
agree.
he dresses. All the cool kids dress like him.
That alone makes me want to rewatch it.
Thank you. I do think we need to have an episode where we revisit a small handful of the movies that we've said no to and see if we've changed our mind, because I think I would change my mind about The Thing. I think you would change your mind about The Birdcage. And I think maybe there's no other movie that I'd be willing to change my mind about, if I'm being honest with you. But
I think those are the two that we both have dug our heels on in like a you fucked up kind of sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we should. Okay. We'll talk about that off air. Dylan, what does IMDb have to say about The Replacements?
IMDb very succinctly says, during a pro football strike, the owners hire substitute players.
Okay, so Frank, you did a bad job, but that's
I think
okay.
I think I did an amazing job.
Either way, now we all know a little bit more about what this movie is about. So, Dylan, I'm going to pass the ball to you. See what I did there? If somebody listening to this podcast right now has not seen this movie, can you please give them the details that they need to understand any future conversations?
Okay, so the players are very stuck up, very greedy, and there's going to be a strike for the last few games of the season. If Washington can win 3 out of 4, they will get to make the playoffs, something they haven't done in a number of years. So they're bringing in replacement players. The most important one being Footsteps Falco, Shane Falco, played by Keanu Reeves, who is trying to show that he is not the failure that he was in his one big college game before he never even got to make the NFL after that, it sounds like. And you have a couple of guys who get, little bits of characterization. You got your zany kicker. You've got your wide receiver who's fast, but he can't catch the ball. You got your linebacker who's a cop and your defensive back who is a prisoner. And like, how will all these guys mesh and become a team in as short a time as possible?
And then there's also a hot chick.
There's also a bunch of stripper babes who are cheerleaders now.
Airport strippers, everybody.
Truly a seminal moment in my childhood. It was an awakening.
Yeah, I feel like I'll have something to say about it in opinions, but first we do need to say the taglines for the movie.
Ugh. Okay, I hate taglines. Go ahead.
There's not a lot. I'll get the worst one out of the way first. Hit hard.
Go fuck yourself.
No.
Throw the ball, catch the girl, keep it simple.
Go fuck yourself ×2.
I feel like that makes sense for what the movie is. I don't love it. Pros on strike, everyday guys get to play.
I mean, that's like, hey, in case you didn't know, this is what this movie is about. Okay.
One last one.
Yeah.
Pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever.
I love that one.
Horrendous.
I kind of
famous line in the movie.
Yeah.
It's like it's the climactic speech in the movie.
It's also kind of like what's the tagline of Star Wars? Luke, I'm your father. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, that was in it.
Okay, fine. I don't love it. Oh shit, what was I gonna say? If before we go to opinions, is it possible for us to just discuss one thing that I'm a little unclear on, and that is the entire NFL on strike, or is it just this team?
Frank, do you want to answer? You want me to answer?
Oh yeah. So this is based on a real thing. It's based on the 1987 NFL strike. They really did this. They really went on and got these replacement players. So it's the entire NFL, and that's why they keep referencing the other teams they're playing, such and such crossed the line, because they are scabs and they crossed the picket line.
There's actually a 30 for 30 documentary about it called Year of the Scab, if you want to check that out.
What is a scab?
So a scab
I know what a scab is.
Do you?
Well, unlike not an actual scab. A scab is the player who is taking the job of somebody else. So
anyone who goes against a union is a scab.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. So play the opinion time music, and then I'll finish what I'm saying.
In this critic's opinion,
that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
Okay. So, thank you for obliging me, Dylan.
Wasn't that wonderful?
Don't you just love when he does whatever I say? So, the other teams they're playing against, I couldn't help but feel. Now, listen, I do not claim to be a football expert. In fact, I proudly claim to be a football moron. But it felt like the other teams were kind of good. And our team, the Sentinels, sucked. Like, did they just get better replacements, or that's why I was wondering if maybe they weren't on strike at all.
I feel like, and I think Frank will back me up on this because he seems to know his shit about the movie he's brought to the table. The other teams brought in a bunch of like semi-pros or like guys who had just been in college type of thing, and it seems like the Coach McGinty for the replacements was like, I'm gonna bring in a bunch of ragtag guys I've been keeping an eye on and make them into a team because he thinks they'll all gel together in like a super special way. But he's not bringing in the best players. He's trying to bring in the best team.
Now, here's my other question. Was anybody going to like double check what this guy is up to behind closed doors, considering he's got files on all these like grown men who are, some of whom are in prison, some of whom are fucking scrubbing barnacles off a goddamn boat? Like, what is he, stalking these men?
100%. One of the things I've written down is one of the most unbelievable things about this movie is that this coach was keeping tabs on a bunch of he was a professional NFL football coach. He was like, but I got 30 guys that if I ever get in this position, I'm going to call up.
Yeah.
I guess that is ridiculous because I was about to be like, well, there are whole scouting departments that do just have files on guys, but they're keeping files on like up and coming college players or players in the league. They're not like, who's that guy that's working at the grocery store now? Clifford Franklin. That's the guy.
Yeah, not Shane Footsteps Falco, who famously, because everyone watched the game, lost the 96 Sugar Bowl.
Lost that Sugar Bowl.
Also,
they talk about it so much.
Is that?
The
Is
Sugar
that a
Bowl?
real thing?
It is an
That's a
actual
real
college bowl game, but there actually was not one in 1996.
Why? It didn't exist?
It existed, but I think that it just ended up falling in terms of like when it's played. That the 95, like there was the 95 one was at like the very end of 95, and the next year was at the very start of 97, like just based on how it fell.
Oh, like, okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. So I guess my first really strong opinion on this movie was that this guy needs the FBI needs to like knock on this guy's door and see what's going on.
What, Coach
No?
McGinty, who I feel like in
Yeah.
my head I also keep making to Coach McGoogles, which is just from like Max Heeple's Big Move. That's just on me that I keep doing that. I'm like, McGoogles is his name. I don't know. I can't.
Okay. I don't know. That's my first big opinion
I mean, he's not harming anybody.
that we know of.
It seems altruistic at worst.
It seems like what he really wanted to do was, if I'm ever a coach again, I'll keep a few names at random positions of guys that I really liked who never got their shot. I don't think he intended to use all of them at once, but he was like, if I'm ever coaching again and a bunch of my wide receivers get hurt, maybe that Clifford Franklin deserves a shot.
Mm. Okay.
That's me being very generous to
Yeah.
the Googles.
Yeah. In a similar vein, you can't just flip somebody's car over without consequences, right?
Oh, well, there were. One of the best scenes in the movie is the lineman shoot at the quarterback's car.
Which I did love, but that also feels like there are consequences for that too. Like, huh?
There's a scene directly after that where one of the coaches is like, if anybody has any guns, just please turn them in. Turn them in, no questions asked.
Yeah, this is America. I feel like there was an apt amount of consequences.
Yeah, there's honestly less guns in this movie than I thought there would be.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Fair to say.
Okay.
I feel like the movie wants to make the players really bad guys, and I feel like in real life they try and do this if there's like a strike, but it feels like it's just billionaires telling me to root against millionaires, and I'm like, well, they're less bad than you. But I get like we need a movie going on here. I do hate they make Eddie Martell into like the biggest douchebag in the world, who is like
He's such a good villain.
yeah. Which there's two things I want to bring up about him that I did not like on this watch that like I didn't like as far as his characterization. So first is that at some point he and the non-scab players managed to put a string that's going all the way entirely through the stadium to the parking lot. And they were able to pull that string so that they could make them trip coming out of the tunnel. And I'm like, who facilitated this string? This magical string? Like the second is they mention it like towards the very end when he's coming out at halftime that he says something like, well, I have 2 Super Bowl rings. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Maybe his douchebaggery is excusable because he should be way better than this movie has made him out to be if he's like this Troy Aikman level quarterback or like some guy who is really good.
Well, also weirdly, towards the end, the thing that bothered me about him was he gives Shane a very weird speech about the head cheerleader as if they have some kind of relationship, like as if he knows her personally. It's like, you're not good enough for her, Shane. You're only going to drag her down.
I think
it's crazy odd.
I thought the exact same thing at first. And I think this is the first time I've ever watched this movie and realized he's not talking about her. He's referring to her as in like the team, like the way you refer to a car, like she's too good for you. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, he can't possibly, he has no awareness of this cheerleader.
There's no way.
Which
Interesting.
the movie also seems to insinuate that they need new cheerleaders. The cheerleaders wouldn't be on strike.
The cheerleaders weren't on strike. I don't know why the cheerleaders were out of a job.
Yeah. I don't know where that
And
came
who's stripping at the airport now?
They just strip at a club by the airport.
It's 2000.
Yeah.
Things were rough.
I guess.
Also, what is the worst thing about Eddie Martell? The things he says, the things he does, or his soul patch?
I was going to say his facial hair.
Yes.
It's just this little thing, yeah.
You know who had that? He was reminded me a lot of like a really gross like airport motel Mark McGrath. You know who I'm talking about? From Sugar Ray? Yeah.
From Sugar Ray.
Yeah. First celebrity I ever met, and I cried. I was so overwhelmed with like this unbelievable amount of joy that I cried.
Was he nice?
Super nice. He was, I guess, working on The Celebrity Apprentice, and he would like my theater like production class went to a prop house in Queens, and he was there, just like randomly there doing something for The Celebrity Apprentice, and I was like, it was really not okay.
Who gave you the opposite reaction?
Oh, that's interesting. I did spill a full bottle of wine on Dr. Phil once at work, and he
Intentionally?
no, although
Oh.
nowadays it would be intentionally, it was definitely not intentionally then. It was right after Miley performed um whatever the song was at the VMAs where she was in like the little mouse outfit and she was with Robin Thicke, and then Robin Thicke like got divorced right after that, and it was like a huge, do you remember what I'm talking about?
I remember what you're talking about. My mind keeps saying
Okay.
Wrecking Ball, but it's not Wrecking Ball.
No, but
I
it was the
wanted it
same
to be Wrecking
album.
Ball.
Yeah.
No, but same, it was the it was maybe it was We Can't Stop. I
That
don't know,
seems
whatever
more
the
right.
Party in the
single was from that
USA?
album. No, it was after that. Anyway, Dr. Phil and Miley's mom were having brunch at Sarah Beth's on Central Park South, and I worked at Sarah Beth's, and I was so young, I didn't know how to open a bottle of wine. So anytime a table would order a bottle of wine, I would just have somebody else open it for me because I was petrified. But it was so busy, and they were in my section, and I just had to fucking figure it out. So my hands were all shaking, and I like went to open it, and I spilled the whole thing all over him, and he was such a fucking prick about it. Now, in fairness, I did cover him in wine, but he could have been a little nicer, you know?
It's the only time I'll ever say this. I think I'm kind of on Dr. Phil's side. I'd be pretty
Yeah,
pissed if somebody
you
spilled
cock
a whole
blocked Dr.
bottle on
Phil.
me.
He was trying to bang Miley Cyrus's mom, and you got in the way.
Yeah.
I know, but like, why were they drinking? Why couldn't they have just had mimosas like normal people?
Dr. Phil can buy himself flowers. He'll be fine.
Thank you. Thank you. I do occasionally wonder if he tells the same story. Like, I'll be at a party and I'll be like, one time I spilled wine on Dr. Phil, and I wonder if he's like, one time this
This
young
goddamn
idiot.
waitress who's brain dead spilled a full bottle of wine on me.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
made him into Goofy a little bit at the end there, but close enough.
No,
It
it
was
was spot on.
Thank
was
you.
good.
I feel like we're talking really bad about the movie, but I do want to compliment Gene Hackman in this movie does such a good job of turning like
Phenomenal.
the most cliche dialogue into like I'm with it. I believe in this coach. Like
Yeah.
he's just there like miles and miles of heart, just saying like random shit and you're like, fuck yeah.
The
Yeah.
reason why I suggested this movie to Gab is because I randomly brought up his quote to Footsteps Falco, where he does the speech about, when I look at you, there's two men. There's the man that you are and the man that you could be. And if those two ever meet, you'll make one hell of a quarterback. I think about that when I'm sad. That's like a go-to.
I wrote
Keep
that quote
going.
down.
Yeah.
That is like for a movie that like I'll just, obviously full spoilers. This movie ends on what I think is like a very clunky piece of dialogue that felt like they're like, we got to get out of here under 2 hours. That one piece of dialogue I feel like is the best piece of dialogue in the whole movie. Like it's the best line.
It justifies the entire movie.
Yes.
Honestly, it brings me to one of my opinions is from a technical standpoint, this movie is a perfectly written movie in terms of exposition. It's not done well, but everyone says everything that's happening all the time, and you know exactly what's happening. Everyone just gives you who they are, the information about what they're talking about, and how this progresses the plot forward. There's no fat in the dialogue. It's not good dialogue. But everyone is like, I haven't seen you in 20 years. I need a team. Oh, you backstabbed me. Every single interaction is just people vomiting information into each other. And at no point are you lost.
I
I
completely
agree with that. And also, I feel like it does such a good job of taking little moments to characterize all of our main players. It's not going to do that for like 53 guys, but this movie does a good job of, I'd say there's got to be at least 7 or 8 guys who it's like, we know a thing about each of them that tells us who that character is. We know the 2 brothers who are the guards. We know the, sumo wrestler turned offensive lineman. You've got Clifford Franklin, who we've been referencing already. The kicker, who like, he's a Welsh douchebag.
He's weary.
He's wiry. Yeah.
Weary.
Danny Bateman, who like, cop. You got your cop and your prisoner dude. Like cop is his whole personality. Cop and like I've been saying on the field, they're like his 2 things, I feel like. But it gives you a little morsel to grab onto for each one of these guys, which I feel like there's a lot of movies like, for a movie to watch before you die, I will name is oh my God. The one about the female baseball
The
players.
League of Their Own.
League of Their Own.
League of Their Own.
There's a bunch of players in League of Their Own who it's like, I don't remember anything about you. You're gone. But I feel like this movie does enough that it gives me like a little moment with each character that I remember them. You know what I mean?
That's funny because
This
you said the
movie-
same thing about A League of Their Own, Dylan.
Well, it does a better job in the replacements of doing that, I'm saying.
Maybe you just watched The Replacements more recently.
And maybe I've just watched it more.
This movie does a really good job of storytelling of a thing I call, it doesn't try to give you 3-note characters, it gives you 2-note characters. Clifford Franklin is a coward. They give him a thing where he isn't a coward. Racist cop gives the black inmate the moment at the end. Fat
Whoa,
racist
time
brothers
out.
become.
Is he racist, cop? I didn't get that.
I think it's implied. One of the things I thought about this movie is, I have it written down, wow, early aughts racism was good for the country. There's enough casual racism going on in this movie where it's not what happened in like 2010s and on, where if people thought these things, they're taught to keep them in, and I think that festers. And in this one, right away, Japanese guy is called Chinese. He fights with the brothers. He earns their respect, and like everything's just out in the open.
There's a
It's
lot of little
respectable hostility.
stereotyping back and forth. Like, it's not
So-
direct
Yeah.
hate.
Now that we've cleared
Yes.
that up, I've got a couple of things I'd like to say about some groups of people.
God.
No,
also-
we'll keep that offline.
You know what line is very 2000s? I've got 3 concussions to prove it. That's why girls don't play the game. And I'm like, well, that's why girls don't have CTE, coach. Like,
Yeah, this was a pre-CTE movie.
yeah, Footsteps Falco
Yeah.
is definitely, he's not going to be doing well by the time he hits 50.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to bring something up kind of in relation to what we're talking about. So, Frank, I often complain about movies that are just quintessential boy movies. And I don't mean that in like they are even like driven toward male audiences, because I would argue that Star Wars is driven more toward male audiences, and I fucking love Star Wars. I was definitely a tomboy growing up. I mean, I spent my entire childhood with Dylan and his brother. So I'm not a stranger to that. But one of the things that drives me crazy about a boy movie is that a boy movie will have a romance in it where it's like, they're both attractive, you know? They saw each other. They were like, you're cute, I'm cute. Let's just do this. And there's no actual relationship built. There's no connection. It's just like, hey. And then all of a sudden they're making out. And this really, really was like, I didn't need this romance. I didn't ask for this romance. But if there's going to be a romance, could it at least have like a foundation, you know?
Yeah. I wrote down the same thing, Frank, where I literally wrote down while I was watching. I kind of think everything with the cheerleaders is not needed and could be eliminated entirely. I don't think the romance is important or works that well. It could be just about these players.
Even if they just knew each other 10 years ago and they like rekindled, you'd be like, oh, well, they knew each other. Instead, it was just like, so this is just like, you're hot, I'm hot.
She should
We
be
should bang.
what she should be is an executive for the team, like a young executive who needs to prove herself, who suggests him to the coach as like, this is the one player that she suggested because he's kept an eye on all these players, but who's going to be the quarterback, the most important position? Like, there's a way to make her work that you don't need, like, which feels very 2000s, the obvious, like, well, we got to have a scene with boobs. Like, we got to have some
Yeah.
scenes where there's hot chicks.
No, I literally wrote down, the most unbelievable thing about this movie is Shane and the cheerleader's love story. This post-torn Natalie Imbruglia pubescent boy's manic pixie dream girl. She might as well be drinking a Coors and playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater because she has no personality. Though I did like the scene where John Madden does the play call of his kiss. That was cute. That was fun. I'm a boy. It's like a touchdown. I want that moment. That's what I want my wedding to be like. I want there's a weird question. Gab, who's the baseball commentator I'm sure you know that I like?
Gary
Bob
Cohen?
Costas.
Oh.
I want Bob Costas calling my wedding.
God damn it, Frank, because I have the exact same thing written down. As much as I don't like the romance, I do like the commentary from Madden and Summerall in this romantic situation.
It's so good.
We're so similar,
It's
I
like
hate
it's as cute as this movie allowed itself to be.
Also, one more thing I want to mention, like from a technical standpoint, we learned that Nigel Gruff has never kicked a field goal, which makes it all the more impressive that the coach was like, this is my guy who's going to be kicker. But in, I think, his second game, he asked him to kick a 65-yard field goal, which at the time would be the longest field goal in history, which I just think is a little insane that they're like, fuck it, Go out there. You're wiry. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen for you. But whatever.
Yeah, I had to look at Corey and go, is that like hard?
That's a hard one. Well, no, that's because the movie's written by nerds. They just made it up. They just picked a number.
This nerd knew that it was long.
Fair.
I have another cheerleader opinion unrelated to the romance. I think if they were gonna do the scene where the cheerleaders are auditioning and they're bad, they needed to be so much worse. And I'm not saying they needed to be fatter or they needed to be like less attractive. I just
No one
think
was
they
saying you
needed
said
to
that,
go.
Gab.
Okay, well, I just want to make it clear because some people on here think that I'm fat phobic. Remember that comment we got? But nonetheless,
Gab walks in the room with me and she goes, ah!
I'm like, oh, my eyes. I think that they needed to go full Melissa McCarthy bridesmaids, like really, like it could have been a laugh out loud moment, and instead it was a little like, huh.
I was kind of into one of the ones that doesn't get picked.
Was it the serial killer one or the?
All right, so I was kind of into two of them, the serial killer one, and Texas, Georgia, P. I was like, whatever is on some part, I knew as a child, I was like, that's attainable. You can like, there's just no way that she won't go on a coffee date with you.
I like that little kid Frank was watching this. It got to be 10, 12 years old on TBS and was like, "Yeah, we can do coffee."
Yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah, like a gentleman, respectful.
Respectful, of course.
So listen, if you're listening, cheerleader, and we know that you are, hit him up. Hit him up on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm sure she's 60.
Yeah. Again,
even more attainable.
Yeah.
Even more attainable. Very attainable cheerleaders. One of them did sign language to hook up with the deaf guy, which was a very fun moment in the movie.
Who?
I did not remember it. That did make me laugh.
Roy from The Office.
Yes.
No way!
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're holy crap.
I think he's being sarcastic.
That's the first thing I always think when I see him. His name is David Denman, but I'm always like, oh, it's Roy.
It's Roy.
Yeah. Did not put. He was so much younger and better looking.
Wait, are you serious? You didn't realize
that? Not even a little bit.
He was just in Rebel Ridge on Netflix, and he looks much, much older. But that's just, it's been 25 years.
Well, my favorite thing about Roy was that in The Office, after he and Pam broke up, he got a movie role and had to get jacked. So all of a sudden, Roy comes in and he's really fit and muscular, and they had to be like, oh, Roy was like going to the gym because he was depressed. But meanwhile, the actor was like buff as hell.
Yeah, because he's in that Secret Soldiers of Benghazi movie.
Yeah.
Never seen it. But I do think that Pam is in the wrong in that show, but that's neither here nor there.
Why do you think that?
She was emotionally cheating on Roy the entire time with Jim.
That's
Jim,
fair.
the villain of The Office.
I feel like it's become easy to like now be like, oh wait, Jim's kind of a douche. And he kind of is. He kind of picks on all his coworkers. Yeah. Sometimes.
He's disaffected.
He's no douchier than Ryan.
Bullies the autistic dude.
Did you just diagnose Dwight?
I'm on the spectrum. I can call it.
Okay. We'll say it's allowed. Okay.
Me, Dwight, and Robert California. We all got something going.
I don't like Robert California, but I love the quote. Everything in life is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. I'm like, you know what?
California. So
that's
much.
a banger.
I like Robert California. Anyway, I do.
No, I just had a. Did you guys also think it's weird logistically at the very beginning of the movie? Did you notice that the movie starts with Shane Footsteps Falco dredging the bottom of what I assume is a Delaware River, and he finds his golden football trophy. He was the quarterback at Ohio State. It's like 15 years later. Why is his trophy football at the bottom of the river so that he can throw it?
I assume he had it on his boat at some point and maybe like, who knows, maybe he was in drunken stupor and he was like, screw this trophy and like threw it overboard and then he's back down there like, picking up my trophy. I don't know. It's just to have a cute visual for the credits.
I will tell you, the emotional roller coaster that I went on in the beginning of this movie was, all right, let's put this on. Let's see. All right, here we go. And then the music starts, and I'm like, oh, man, I forgot how much I love the early 2000s. Let's go. And then this motherfucker goes into the water, finds a trophy. He looks at it. I'm like, gee, I wonder whose name that is. And then he starts pantomiming football and throwing it and being like, bah, well, he can't breathe under the water. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is going to be cheesy.
Oh, I mean,
It's
I mean,
definitely.
did either of you? Sorry, it was definitely cheesy, but also, did either of you think about how corny it was when he tried to hook up with a girl after telling her that his boat is basically named the Loser?
Yeah.
Which
He thought that would work.
it
Pixius. It means
does.
giving up the fight. You want to come in?
It means giving up to flight. Flight.
Oh, oh, really?
Again, I looked it up this time because I was like, what is Pixius? And I've always heard the same thing where it's like giving up the fight. And I'm like, so is he trying to go against that? Is that like, what's the story trying to tell me with this? And then I finally Googled it and I was like, oh, like Falco is Falcon, flight. He's taking off.
He's,
Got it. But why it seemed a little on the nose for him to name it Pixius.
I learned two new things.
Yeah. We had the exact same misunderstandings of this movie.
It's so romantic, you two. Oh my God.
We have more chemistry than Shane Falco and the
This
cheerleader.
is our meet cute.
Exactly.
I will say Keanu
Exactly.
Reeves, like this feels like this is the lull in Keanu Reeves' career a little bit where he was like forgot how to like get emotional at times. There are times in this movie where he's just giving you nothing emotionally.
Yeah. I said this to Corey and he thought I was crazy, so I'm gonna say it to you guys. Um, there is an actor on SNL, Taron Killam.
I know what you're talking about.
Doesn't Keanu Reeves look like him in this movie?
I mean,
Come
no.
on, Dylan, help Dylan. Come on.
No.
Come on.
Isn't Taron Killam the one who's like from Big Fat Liar?
Taron Killam is the one that went to Broadway and played King George.
He was in Big Fat Liar? I love that movie.
Yeah, he's the one, but I have your skateboard.
Oh my God, I don't think I ever realized that was him.
I
Um,
think that's a bit generous to say that.
That's that's insane. He has fat, chubby cheeks, and Keanu Reeves looks like Keanu Reeves.
Okay, so also told Corey, I think if today, post watching this movie not that long ago, if I were summoned by a police officer and brought to the station and showed a lineup and they said which one of these men is Keanu Reeves, I would not be able to answer. Now, I know he's John Wick, so I could probably recognize him today, but like young Keanu Reeves, they'd be like, which one of these men is in from that movie you just watched? And I'd be like, officer, cuff me.
I will say he's been John Wick for like 10 years now, and he looks great with the beard. He did one movie in the past 10 years, the Bill and Ted Face the Music, where he shaved the beard, and I'm like, oh, you look unrecognizably different, sir. Like
He looked weird.
you need to keep that beard now. It's too late. Like your face can no longer not have a beard. Yeah.
Scary. We went to see Captain America on Saturday, which was fun for me because I had no context going into this about what it was about or who those people were or what they were talking about, but I was along for the ride. And in the previews, they have this whole really cool movie about this like Russian ballerina chick who's like really badass and kicking ass. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And then it's like, just kidding, it's a John Wick movie. Here's Keanu Reeves looking old and haggard. And I was like, ooh.
He doesn't look old and haggard.
Doesn't look haggard. Probably looks old.
He's supposed to be like the nicest guy in the world. Let's
Nice guy
not
in the
take
world.
pot shots at Keanu. I think he looks great for a guy in his 60s.
So, question for both of you. Have either of you ever been in a situation where you have been the replacement? And what was it for? And how did it make you feel? What kind of trauma are you carrying with you today as a result of being the replacement?
I've been replaced. I haven't been the replacement, and that brings me much trauma, Gap.
Dylan, I fucking, I'm so proud of you.
That was a banger of a joke.
Okay.
You throw me a matzo ball, I'm gonna take a swing. Right? Your move.
Well, my answer is going to be garbage now.
Feel like it's a little inside baseball. That's a little Dylan's life joke.
For our 14 listeners.
I've never been replaced in anything I think I gave a fuck about.
No. Have you ever been a replacement? Not have you been
Oh,
replaced?
have I been the filler in? Yeah, yeah. Every person I dated after they dated the last person. No
Okay,
one starts
that's
at the
fair.
beginning.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll take
Fair
that.
enough.
That's true. Okay, well, I was gonna say that I played on my high school junior varsity tennis team because the coach was really good friends with the dad, like our dads in the neighborhood. They all played cards together. So it was me, my friend Nikki, Dylan, who you know, and our friend Heather, who is deaf. their dads played cards with the tennis team coach. My dad did not, but I kind of like hung around with them. So they made the tennis team, and I was like one of the second string players who played like the exhibition games, and my record was like 0 and 12.
Mm.
Let me ask you, would Heather have been a first round talent though if she wasn't deaf?
I think really the question is, would Heather have been a first round talent if her dad wasn't the one hosting the card games? And to that, I say no and no.
That's another thing that feels like nerds wrote this movie, isn't it, Frank? Because realistically, being deaf in a football team is a pretty major problem.
Yeah.
I would no, really. I was thinking the whole time he should be able to play in the NFL.
How?
Just don't change the play.
You need to change the play sometimes, Frank. And he's just going to be off ticking around because he doesn't know what the rest of the team changed the play to.
I think he could. I think he could get off on context clues because I don't like that they made it seem like he was deaf and dumb and not deaf and dumb like he can't talk, like deaf and stupid.
That deaf, dumb, and blind kid, though.
I don't think the movie implies that he's stupid. I do feel like the movie, like, this is what I'm talking about, where it characterizes people enough for one thing, and for him, instead of a characterization, they were like, he's deaf. That's his thing. And I'm like, but that doesn't tell me
Instead of a characterization, it's like he's disabled.
he's deaf and he's gonna get his dick sucked. Two things you need to know about that guy. Like,
Yeah, I do think he did a very poor job of playing a deaf person. Like it seemed like he was
You could
kind
tell
of
he
just
could
like,
hear.
what did you want him to do in his
Huh?
30 seconds of screen time?
He didn't sign well. I don't know. He wasn't like he didn't like make the noises.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
what are the noises?
I'm
Yeah,
not
what
gonna do
noises
it.
would you have liked him to make?
First of
Gab?
all, some deaf people, like my friend Heather from high school, who was on the tennis team, have a cochlear implant and can hear. They just don't hear through their ears. So he could have had one of those.
Yeah, but then he's not the deaf tight end anymore.
To Gab's point about the noises, and this is getting totally sidetracked, but this is like an old wives' tale about if any of you have ever heard anyone speak Portuguese. Portugal and Spain are attached. They're the Iberian Peninsula. It used to be so that you had to speak the language that the king spoke. So that's why Spanish people speak Spanish. They were Spain for a very long time. There are a lot of deaf kings in Spain's history because of all the inbreeding. Portuguese sounds just like deaf Spanish. They conjugate the vowels howly because this is how you say, hello, my name is Francisco in Spanish. Hola, mi nombre es Francisco. And I won't make a mockery of it, but in Portuguese, it's, oh, meu nome é Francisco. And if that doesn't sound like a deaf person ordering a sandwich,
Wait, are you serious? Is that actually the Portuguese version of that?
yes, 100%.
Huh.
Wow.
Obrigado, obrigado. I mean, it's just saying.
I've always said, because we watch a lot of 90 Day Fiance, that people who speak Portuguese sound like people speaking Spanish with a really bad speech impediment.
And
Doing
now
something
you
over
have a
there.
theory as to why.
Crazy.
That's also why the rapper Mos Def is named after a Spanish king.
Can't hear?
Okay.
I made that up, clearly.
Yeah, good job. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really wanted to say about this movie other than the fact that the romance was a mockery and the cheerleaders could have been fatter.
Okay.
All
Let's-
of them or the non-strippers?
Sorry, the non
The ones who didn't make the team is who Gab's
Yeah.
talking
The ones who
about.
didn't make
Yeah. I was very curious as to why, and maybe this is a football thing that I don't understand. Why didn't we ever see the other team's cheerleaders?
Well, for the games that they're playing at their stadium, the other team's cheerleaders aren't going to be there.
Oh, you
But
don't
they
the
don't travel.
cheerleaders don't go with you?
No, they make like $25 a game. They don't travel.
That's why we got the scene of Shane hooking up with her. I hope she has a name. I didn't write it
If
down.
either one of you can tell me what her name is right now, I will call this a movie to watch where you die immediately.
It was like Annabelle.
Oh fuck! It is Annabelle.
Can I wait, Dylan? For $1 million, why do I remember that her name is Annabelle? Whose name was Annabelle? Or
Was
did
her
you
name
also
Annabelle in the musical that we watched 5 years later?
No, the last 5 years.
The last 5 years.
Um,
Close enough.
We're going to see it on Broadway on March 28th, Dylan. I'm very excited.
I'm not.
Nick Jonas is in it. So this is what do you remember from our childhood and what have you blocked out from the trauma? whose name was Annabelle?
No, I've blocked out a lot. Somebody brought up Laser Kingdom today, though. That unlocks some shit for me.
Laser Kingdom. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Wood Kingdom.
Yep.
A lot of birthday parties there. Uncle Irwin and Aunt Carol had a really big sheepdog named Annabelle. Do you remember her?
Is this riveting for you, Frank?
I'm trying to figure out what Wood Kingdom would be. Just a forest?
You guys didn't have Wood Kingdom?
It's just a
I
lot of
had
playgrounds
kids
and such.
aerobics and Discovery Zone.
Well, we had Discovery Zone, of
We had
course.
Fun Zone.
Oh, fuck, we did
You kids
have
want to
Fun
do
Zone.
something really fun? Best commercial. Best commercial
Yeah.
of the 2000s. 90s? I don't know.
90s, definitely. So Wood Kingdom was like a bunch of those like wood kids play sets with like the swings and the slide and the treehouse, but it was like an entire showroom of them where the kids could play in it.
Oh, a park. You went to a park.
No.
Indoors.
I'm gonna pull up the picture and show you.
Less fun park.
Yeah. Well, while you talk about that, I'm going to talk about this movie more because I'm going to say there's a line in this movie that the football fan in me likes a lot more than like movie guy me. So I really like his description when they're talking about the scene they're talking about fears, and Shane starts describing quicksand. I'm like, that is a great discussion of like football and what could happen. That feels like when the nerds left the room and they brought in the guy who knew about football. Like when he talks
Can
about
I
quicksand.
ask you a question about that scene?
Sure.
You didn't think it was incredibly odd that somehow psychic coach Jimmy McGinty knew Shane wasn't talking about quicksand? Because he had the energy of they huddled up in the hallway before and he's like, listen, they're gonna say a bunch of dumb shit. But when it gets to you, you gotta be poignant. So I think give me that quicksand. Like he had the energy of we've rehearsed this, Shane.
There's definitely a bit of that. There's definitely a bit of that, or that's just the one guy whose intelligence on the entire team that he's in a faith in that he was like, tell me there's more, Shane.
Tell me there's more. Tell me it isn't just bees. A reasonable fear.
Please, God, tell me you don't mean actual quicksand. And I do like Clifford's moment where he has to turn around and really be like, yo, what up, Shane? Like, yeah, tell me what your fear is.
The sweet moment. They gave him they bought us some goodwill before he really made that reporter uncomfortable.
I feel like if we cut out all the cheerleader stuff, we can do a little bit more with prison guy who's going to go back to prison. I'm like, that guy's got a real fear.
Whole movie could have been about his story, and it's a more compelling movie.
Which that is a thing in real life, that a guy got a work release from prison to play for the 1987 replacement Washington team.
Wood Kingdom.
This
You're not
only
doing a good
gets
job
sadder.
disproving
This
his
is
like indoor
so
park.
sad.
Frank,
this
is
like
sad.
This is
was great as a
McDonald's
kid.
play zone,
but bigger.
Way bigger.
This looks way terrible.
This is fake.
As an adult,
Anyway.
this does not look great.
Anyway.
It looks like where you send the kids to go before their parents get murdered.
It looks like where you send the kids to go so the parents can go drink. Maybe
That
it was just my dad.
That definitely was the case. Do you guys remember plaster craze? When you would go to the birthday party and you would paint, like you'd get a plaster thing, you would pick it out, right? It could be a unicorn, it could be a rainbow, it could be a Ninja Turtle, whatever. And then you paint it. And then while the paint is drying, they brought you into a room that was essentially a children's nightclub. It was dark, there were glow lights and a disco ball, and you would do like the Macarena and you would dance and shit. And then you'd eat pizza and take your plaster and go home.
This was an establishment?
Yes.
No,
we didn't have those in the Bronx.
I really
There's
think
not
that
one.
you did.
Hey,
Dylan, you definitely went to at least 3 of my birthday parties at Plaster Craze.
I think I might even have a picture there, but that doesn't mean that I've chosen to remember it, Gab. I've blocked out a whole lot of shit. That's how I am the picture of sanity and clarity you see before you today.
It must be.
Okay. So let's mention real quick, because this movie is definitely newer than Little Giants, the fact that this movie straight up steals a joke from Little Giants.
The Stickum.
The Stickum.
To the point where I remembered it as the Little Giant scene, and I was waiting for the Stickum to be colored black, but this Stickum looks like elephant cum, to quote Clifford Franklin.
Because Little Giants kind of does it better too, where he full on has the hands like end up sticking to his jersey and like he doesn't get to make the catch. Now, Stickum, also a real life thing. The guy I always think of is Fred Biletnikoff, who was a wide receiver for the Raiders back in, I think, the 70s, who would put so much of this stuff all over his hands, and he would put it all over his legs, too, so that he could, like, re-up after catching the ball and just wipe his hands through it. And if you look up old highlights of this guy, you'll see the ball just, like, hit a part of him, and he's just already caught the ball because it's just on somewhere of his body where he's covered in sticky shit. I don't know. I just think that's really cool that there was a guy who was actually like, yeah, cover me in that shit. My whole job is to have things stick to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about I remember something happening in this movie where they were like, if we just roll the ball to this guy, and I was like, is that allowed? Can you just like kick? I don't know, like that they were like, well, if I swipe it away or something and then it rolls on the ground, he can just pick it up. And I was like,
A
this
fumble?
can't be.
Are you talking
That's
about the
fine.
onside kick?
I don't know.
Are you talking about when they kick the ball to the guy and they tackle him so he doesn't get the ball and one of them gets it?
I don't know.
Are you
Do you
talking
know what
about
do you remember
when
what I'm talking
the
about?
sumo wrestler has a touchdown?
No. I said to you, are they allowed to do that?
Oh, somebody stripped the ball and then.
Somebody stripped the ball and then
Yeah, it's a fumble.
Corey will be football translating for
and they were
Cal.
just trying to yeah, he's my translator. They were just trying to recover it. But I thought he was like, if I instead of throwing it, if I just like roll it on the ground.
I just remember them doing that, and we talked about. I was like, oh yeah, but that's a thing.
Okay.
Let's talk about another Raiders great moment in history, the Holy Roller, where they just fumbled the ball on the ground forward intentionally until somebody could fall out of the end zone for a touchdown to win the game, which is
That
now
feels
illegal.
yeah, I was gonna say that feels like it didn't probably happen a second time.
No, it did not.
Okay.
Um, let's talk about another thing that I feel like I realized on this watch of the movie that I never realized before. So Martell has a moment with Murphy, who is the deaf tight end, where he's like, telling him he's doing a bad job. Then he throws the ball to him again in such a way over the middle, like forward part of the field that he immediately gets his shit rocked. And I've never realized it before, but I feel like the implication by his actions afterwards, I thought it was just supposed to be that he was like, oh, this guy sucks. I think he intentionally throws the ball over the middle for the deaf player to get rocked because he was not going to be aware that somebody's coming to hit him.
100%. It is, you have to presume that because of the way they talk about Eddie Martell, is that he is a huge jerk off, but that he is the best quarterback in the league. They say it several times. So everything he did, I am of the belief that had he been playing with other players from his original team, he would have been playing well. I've always been under the belief that he was playing poorly because he wanted to make them look bad.
I don't believe that. Like, I do to an extent, but I also think Martell would be great because he's a great talent and he wants to be around great talent. But he is not great in the sense of this whole team by McGinty is built around like these players will work together because of just straight up chemistry and they're built to mesh well. And that's what will make them work. But Eddie Martell is playing with these guys and he's like, well, I need talented players who can also complement my talents, and I've got a bunch of trash. Like I'll give it to you in the sense that I don't think he's even really trying that hard. Like we see him give up a couple times because he's like, who cares about these games?
Which is also part of his personality. He does a slide at the beginning.
Yeah.
I did think the scene in the locker room where they were when Falco comes back and they're basically like, "Get out of here. We don't need you anymore," was like straight out of a Disney Channel original movie.
Which in reality, there's such a thing as a backup quarterback. So like what the fact that Shane is just
100%.
not there for the first half of the game, it gets there in like 2.5 seconds and he's like, what took you so long? Traffic was crazy. Like it's like why wasn't Falco there? Like Falco should have been on the sideline with a clipboard, like, coach, put me in, like that type of energy.
His whole thing is not being a good leader, and in that moment, he was not being a good leader by not being with the team.
Yeah, the night before the game, he's like, well, I'm out. Like so he basically just hits him with a see ya.
I
I
don't
don't
know,
know.
guys.
So they stole the one thing from Little Giants, the stick 'em joke. And they stole so Nigel at the end, they bring him in for the field goal to tie the game. And he says, I can't kick the field goal. They're gonna take my pub because he owes money, I guess. And it's like, all right, whatever. We need a reason for him to not be able to kick the field goal. And they steal from Charlie Brown. Shane Falco just rips that football away, and we get to see him just kick into the air. I was like, wait, I don't remember him having to do the full kick for nothing. Like he could have told him, like, I'm gonna run it or something like that. Instead, we just see him what like fly into the air.
Dylan, to your point about the kick, I think he had to go full force to sell it to the bookies that I think flew from Wales to Washington, D.C. to threaten him.
Which they don't do a great job of threatening. Like, they don't find him outside before the game and tell him, like, we're going to
They
murder
bought
you.
tickets. They bought good seats at that
Yeah,
game. They're very
they
close
paid to be
for a
close
playoff
enough to the
game.
bench so that they could give him a real, like, putting their fist into their hand type of, oh, we're going to get you. Don't you do it.
It did make me sad, though, when he was like, they're going to take my dog. I was like, oh, God, throw the game.
His dog? What are you talking
His
about?
pub.
His pub.
His pub. There
Oh,
was
I
never a
heard
dog in
pub.
this.
He does,
like-
they're going to take my pug.
That's what I thought.
Oh.
I was like, not the dog.
Does
That
a
would have
couple
been something
times.
they stole from John Quick. John Quick. God damn it. John Wick.
Oh,
I want him
sad.
to do a crossover with chocolate milk now. John Quick.
No, you know what I was thinking? This movie takes on a totally different context if you watch this and Inside Man back to back and presume one is the prequel to the other.
Wait, Inside Man, like...
Sorry,
Yeah.
Enemy of the State.
Oh, okay. I was like, it's the bank one? Like, I was like, I
No,
don't
no.
see it.
Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman. If you think that Jimmy McGinty turns into that guy, fantastic viewing experience. I highly recommend it.
If you combine a bunch of Gene Hackman movies, this movie could get weird real quick. French Connection, where he's like racist for no reason. I'm like, ooh, don't want that guy coaching me. Like,
Well, Dylan, I think it's time we get to the facts.
I want the truth.
Face the facts, Dukes.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie gets a 41% with an average rating of 5 out of 10, 44 fresh reviews, 64 rotten. Audience score is 66%. IMDb, it has an 8.5 out of 10. It had a budget of $50 million, and it grossed $50 million.
Oof.
The critics' consensus, the cliched characters and obvious outcome make all the fun and excitement amount to nothing. Seems a bit cruel, but okay.
It's a little harsh.
This has all been for naught. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars. It's like a standard sports movie, but with every point made twice or 3 times, as if we'd never seen one before. Jan Stewart from Newsday, you can write the script yourself. Just think nursery school, then simplify. Stephen Rosen from the Denver Post, The Replacements is pretty good when it sticks to comedy. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Then Terry Lawson from the Detroit Free Press, who I just imagine sitting in like the worst room critic screening ever, who just said, I dare you not to enjoy it. And then I imagine him turning over to Ebert, who was like, on Letterboxd, we got a couple. Joe said, Keanu Reeves has played every role, but not my husband. Shake my head.
I find him to be heinous and very unattractive, and I don't think there's a single redeeming quality about him, and I would never want him to be my husband. So that's my 2 cents on that. Sorry.
I've never heard that hot a Keanu Reeves take.
Yeah.
I strongly now listen. I also recently admitted to not being able to pick him out in a lineup, so I'm not like as passionate about this as maybe it's coming across. But I have never thought of him as attractive.
I think he's attractive. Like, I think he looks. I
Handsome
think there's a
dude.
middle period where I don't find him as attractive. Let's talk about how dreamy I find Keanu Reeves. Beginning Keanu Reeves in like Speed and The Matrix. I
Hot.
get it. I get it.
Undeniably
Good-looking
hot.
dude. Middle era Keanu, not for me. John Wick Keanu, back at it again. Good looking dude. This has been
Next.
Keanu Reeves' dreaming to scale. Sonic Temple on Letterboxd. Pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever. Words to motherfucking live by. Peyton Jordan. When I get my Shane Falco jersey, it's over for you bitches. And Old Man Angelo, the movie that 21 years ago managed to make me and every other swinging dick, overly macho high schooler man the fuck up and admit we love Gloria Gaynor.
Oh, that is my favorite part of the movie.
It would be
Yeah.
a disservice if we did not mention the I Will Survive. That's great.
Yeah. My second go-to karaoke song. Guys, what are your go-to karaoke songs? Number 1 song. If you have one opportunity, what are you singing? Dylan, you go first.
Jump Around, House of Pain.
You're gonna rap?
You know it.
Okay. I'm gonna remind you of this. Frank,
In the end, Linkin Park.
interesting. I'm worried for you.
That answer didn't even matter. The movie was directed by Howard Deutsch.
Wait, I want to say mine.
Oh, wait,
You
did
did.
you just say it was I Will Survive?
No, I
will
said that's
survive.
my second go-to karaoke song.
Frank, what are we supposed to listen to her the whole time? God, what's
what-
the first one?
My first go-to karaoke song is oh my God.
Did you
Alanis
forget your own
Morissette.
thing?
No, I just can't think of I can't think of what the fuck the song is called.
You want to know?
You ought to know. Thank you.
You ought to know.
You.
My
you,
second
you.
is Torn, Natalie Imbruglia.
I mean, we will duet the shit out of that all day.
I will watch
Dylan,
that.
FYI, the night of our wedding, we're hoping to have the after party at a karaoke bar. So this is going to come back to haunt you.
Oh God, it already is now. Okay, cool. The movie's directed by Howard Deutsch, who also directed Grumpier Old Men, The Great Outdoors, and Pretty in Pink. The screenplay, yes, I also made that face. The screenplay is written by Vince McEwen, who also wrote The Climb and Fly Away Home, and that was all I could really find. Stars Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco, who you know from The Matrix, Speed, and John Wick. Gene Hackman as Jimmy McGinty, who you know from The French Connection, The Royal Tenenbaums, and Unforgiven. Jon Favreau as Danny Bateman, who you know from directing Iron Man, Elf, and The Mandalorian. Rhys Ifans as Nigel Gruff the Kicker, who you know from Little Nicky, The Amazing Spider-Man. Brooke Langton as Annabelle. Orlando Jones as Clifford Franklin. Faizon Love as Jamal. Michael Talfero as Andre. Ace Yonamine as Fumiko. David Denman, who is Roy from The Office, as Brian Murphy. Jack Warden as the owner, Brett Cullen as Eddie Martell, John Madden, Pat Summerall, Keith David, and Michael Jace plays Wilkinson, who was the guy who came out of prison. I also know him from, I've been rewatching The Shield with my brother, and he's got a prominent role on that. He is now in prison for 40 years to life because he murdered his wife. Ironic that he's afraid of going back to prison in the movie.
The crazy thing is he's going to get a work release for the remake of this movie.
I was like, what?
I was like, wait, what team is he playing for? Like, I don't know why in my head I was like, does he really play?
Did you know that Keanu Reeves got a tryout with the Ravens because of this movie?
Ah, you son of a bitch. That was going to be one of my facts. So the Ravens were like, they were practicing at the Ravens Stadium, and they were like, you know what? Let's take a look at this guy.
This lefty's got a good arm. Yeah.
I mean, who was their quarterback at the time? Trent Dilfer?
This was pre-Joe Falco.
Oh, way pre that. They've got...
Wait, they had the same last name?
Flacco, not Falco. Joe Flacco.
Oh, shit.
I was like, what?
No, this
Similar
is like the
letters.
Trent Dilfer, Kyle Bowler, Elvis Gerback era
Oh, my
quarterbacks.
gosh.
So they had a lot of bad quarterbacks. So why not throw Keanu Reeves in there if he was willing, you know?
That's crazy. Was this his first real role in anything?
No. The Matrix
Keanu
is before
Reeves?
this.
Yeah. He was on
The
Miami
Matrix was
Vice.
before this.
Bill and Ted.
Speed. Bill and Ted.
Wow. Is
The
he
vampire
is
movie.
there any like is he related to someone? Why can't I think of the word when your family member
Is
gives
he a
you
Nepo baby?
Yes.
No.
Nepotism. Interesting.
He made it all the way from Hawaii. Yeah. He was just hot in the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so in the real story with the 1987, they were called at the time the Washington Redskins, so I'm going to refer to them as such. They won all of their replacement games, and the real Redskins returned for Week 7 to the Super Bowl, and the team won the Super Bowl. The franchise did not acknowledge the replacement players and give them any credit for the team's success. They finally did receive their Super Bowl rings, and none of the replacement players got rings, even though it was said that they would not have been able to win the Super Bowl without those players winning the games. 30 years later, in March of 2018, the team finally recognized their replacement players' contributions and gave them Super Bowl rings.
How many of them were dead?
I don't know, but a bunch of them did get Super Bowl rings, and it's kind of nice to see these old men be like, I got to play in 3 football games. And you're like, good for you, fella.
That's how I felt about Rudy.
He got to play in 1 game.
Yeah. Good for you, pal.
Keanu Reeves gained 23 pounds for his role as Shane Falco.
Which is insane because he's so thin in this movie.
Yeah, I was like, he doesn't look like he packed on so much muscle for the role. I don't know. Although I feel like we're just very critical now that it's like, how come he isn't Chris Evans, Captain America, jacked? Like, but she wouldn't be as a quarterback. Like, Peyton Manning doesn't look jacked. Fumiko's war cry, Nandesuka, in Japanese means, what is this?
I will say, I said that so much as a kid.
Oh, me too. Nandesuka! Like, yes.
It just feels nice to say. It's nice to yell.
Yeah, you scream it before you, like, jump on and tackle your brother. Yeah, that type of thing.
What is say it slowly again, very slowly.
Nandesuka.
Nandesuka.
Nandeshka.
So
Okay.
Earl Wilkinson, the prison guy played by Michael Chase, who's actually in prison, is based on Tony Robinson, who was a replacement quarterback for the Washington Redskins in a game against the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys during the '87 strike. He was an inmate on work release, and he was allowed to play that one game and led the team to a 13-7 victory on Monday Night Football. It was one of the biggest upsets of the '87 season. He was released from prison in 2012.
Okay.
It's like a 40-year bid he did.
Yeah, and actor Ace Yonamine, who played Nandesuka guy, is actually a former sumo wrestler in real life.
Sumo wrestling. Why do I feel very strongly that it was at one point in the Olympics?
You know, Gab, if you ever thought to write down one note or any kind of fact, you could have Googled that before this.
No. I'm asking why I know now that it was not in the Olympics, but I do feel as though there was a time period where sumo wrestling was very much in the public consciousness. And so it felt like maybe it was in the Olympics, but there's no other country that does it. So it's not. But like sumo wrestling, like why do we as Americans know sumo wrestling? Why could we mimic the thing, like especially when we were kids? Like what's up with that? Why were we obsessed with sumo wrestling?
Street Fighter came out in the early 80s, early 90s, and we all knew about Edmund Honda.
My brain also thinks of the Three Ninjas movies, which totally reference sumo wrestlers at different times in it. Yeah. And sumo was a feature of the World Games, an Olympics recognized event for non-Olympic sports from 2001 until 2022.
Also, Gab's fat phobia only lets her process fat people as athletes.
Yeah, correct.
That's all the facts that I got. And since we are through with the facts, it is time for the mail.
The mail.
Mail time? When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
So first we have a comment on our Lion King episode from the one and only Scotty Cameron.
Scotty.
It is long and it is about Saw. So
oh my God.
We owed it to him. We even asked him questions during Saw. I feel like, so
God, we did. All right, fine.
We welcomed it. The more I think about the garage trap, the more I feel bad for Evan. The poor guy, he tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it didn't even matter. It was the lead singer from
Yeah, I understand.
I can see how the needle pit from Saw 2 can be seen as torture porny. It is the most uncomfortable scene to watch in the film. It's put to shame by what comes later, like the garage trap and the 10 pints of blood trap. The 10 pints of blood, you don't care. You don't want me to explain it, do you?
No, you can explain it.
So, I think, I want to say it's Saw's...
Quickly, Dylan, quickly.
Okay. There's buzz saws, and you got to stick your hands in, and once there's 10 pints of blood, it will stop, and you'll be able to leave the room before it, like, blows up or some shit like that, I think.
Yeah, but won't you be dead if you lose 10 pints of blood?
Well, the whole point was, every one of these traps, it would have turned out that they all could have been non-lethal if all 5 people had worked together, or 5 or 6 people, but instead they each keep turning on one another, so one of them keeps dying in every trap. So by the time they get to that last one, there's only 2 of them, and I think they survive it, but they really got to mutilate themselves for 5 pints of blood each.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow. Hate that.
Yeah, it's really, they're not fun. When I think of Saw 2, I tend to think of the furnace, the Phoenix Fly Trap, and the revolver door, which kills subjects instantly. A little backstory on Billy the Puppet in Saw lore, since Dylan raised the question in the Saw episode. In Saw 4, Gab, you are going to figure out, Saw is 2 things. It's torture porn, and it's soap opera. So here's the soap opera.
Okay.
In Saw 4, it's established that John Kramer, who is Jigsaw, created Billy the Puppet as a gift for his unborn son Gideon, after learning that his wife Jill was pregnant. However, Jill ran a rehab center for recovering addicts. Amanda and Paul were some of Jill's clients. It turns out when Paul isn't playing Pepsi Man, he's at a rehab center cutting himself for attention. Anyway, one night Cecil, another of Jill's patients and Amanda's boyfriend, robbed the rehab center and slammed a door on Jill's stomach, causing her to miscarry Gideon. That sent John into a state of depression, which only got worse when he figured out he had cancer and his insurance company wouldn't cover his cancer treatment. So John attempted suicide, but his attempt failed and he learned to value his life. So he concluded that people who take their lives for granted never had near-death experiences to make them value their lives. That's when Kramer became Jigsaw. I shouldn't refer to him as just Kramer. I've been watching too much Seinfeld for that.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a second.
Here comes a trap. Giddy up. That's when John Kramer became Jigsaw, and Gideon's toy, Billy the Puppet, became the symbol of his crusade. Cecil was Jigsaw's worst victim. I am done talking about Saw for now. But thank you for catching us up, Scotty.
Is that in a movie or that's just like
No, that's
the
all
like
in movies.
okay, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I didn't really care all that much, but I'm glad to know.
Yeah, and then we have an email from our Canadian correspondent, Kyle, of the Film Realist
Hmm.
podcast, on The Lion King. Hello, all. I know that the live action remakes have been received mostly poorly by fans. The problem that I have with most of them is they fail to work as a live action film because they try to have the same spectacle as a cartoon, which they're never going to be able to achieve. Given all that, given all that, is there an animated Disney movie that might actually benefit from a live action remake? As an example, while I know that Gab loves Mulan, if the live action remake went for a historical epic instead of whatever the fuck it was, that could have been cool. Your favorite, Kyle Naranya.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Is there a Disney film that would benefit from being live action?
I'll tell you what. Probably not Pocahontas.
Probably not.
Perhaps didn't they do 101? Oh, they did Cruella.
They did Cruella, yeah.
What
It's
about
hard because so many of them are like talking animals, which I think is inherently going to be better animated than it is going to be when they quote unquote live action it.
yeah, but you know what was kind of a fun in between? Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins is live action, Gab.
Well, yeah, but they have all the cartoon penguins and stuff. There's a lot of cartoonage in Mary Poppins.
It's not just the one
Dylan.
scene.
I don't know, Dylan.
That's like if I said Pete's Dragon, because the
Well,
dragon was
that's
animated.
yeah. Also, I loved that movie. Did you?
I really enjoyed that movie too.
Yeah.
Although
It's great. I
ask me
wonder
how
if we
much of
would
it I
still like
remember.
it.
Yeah.
None. Absolutely none. I remember the only thing I remember is it's a dragon. It's a dragon. That's literally it. Those three words
I
repeated
feel like
twice.
I saw one clip of like those like crumb bum grifter type people, and I was like, as an adult, I mean, I saw one clip of them, and I was like, oh god, they're gross. They are
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
they
yeah.
seem slimy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What was the dragon's name? Elliot.
Yes, but now I'm thinking of E.T. Elliot.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember E.T. very well. I mean, I watched it a bunch, but
You know that was just like an 80-year-old who smoked forever as the voice of E.T.
no.
Yeah, it's just an 80-year-old lady who smoked a lot who was just like, is this good?
Oh my God. Speaking of, how's grandma?
Well, grandma is 94.
Uh-huh.
That's how she is. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
okay.
Like, I
All
can't
right.
give you much more than that.
That's fine.
She's
Still
doing well.
breathing.
I haven't been visiting her enough because it's been so busy with work, but
Yeah.
she's doing okay.
Okay, good. All right. Well, listen, we don't need to keep going. They don't need to hear all this.
Okay. She sends texts sometimes that are just gibberish. She tries.
Good.
God bless her, she tries.
Good.
But yeah.
Koopa
turns
Goopa
out,
is still on heavy rotation in our house.
it turns out being in your 90s with Parkinson's is not good for texting.
Who'da thunk it?
She looks like every time she sends a text, it looks like a bomb expert being like red wire, blue wire. Like, what am I gonna do? I don't know. My brain keeps saying Lilo and Stitch, so I'm gonna say Lilo and Stitch, even though they're doing that because it's just the one live action character. So it's kind of Pete's Dragon-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Okay. I guess now we can get back to talking about our testosterone-filled conversation on the replacements with Frank.
Yeah, man.
Grr.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
Frank, since this was your pick, why don't you tell us why you think this movie is so great?
See, great is an overstatement, but I do think it is a movie that you should watch.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think everything
Oh.
has to be great. I just think it's a movie you should watch before you die. Because I think if you're like a 12, 13-year-old boy, and I agree with you, Gab, it's a boy movie. I can't imagine really what a girl gets out of this movie. Like all of the things that you hated resonated so deeply with Dylan and I because
Sure.
you're just
He's right. 13-year-old Dylan was like, boobs.
yeah, guts and glory. There's boobs. There's a speech. It's honestly, it is a very interesting treatise on the positive aspects of masculinity that get lost and actually aren't shown in film these days because everything that you're espoused to be in this movie is like a good person. Everyone who isn't good is immoral. They don't back up their friends and they don't treat women well. Like I think it's just a nice, fun movie to watch. Fuck it. You know what? You don't have to watch it.
So
I
it's
like
not a
it. You
movie to
know,
watch before you die?
no, but I like it.
Wait.
Who am
Hold
I to
on.
tell
I
you?
need
I
I need
like it a
clarity.
lot.
Frank, you have to make a decision. Is it or is it not a movie to watch before you die?
I don't like that you're waffling on it.
No, I stand by it. It's a movie. It's a movie to watch before you
What would
die.
Shane
I
Falco
think
do, Frank? You stand boldly behind your pick.
I have to stand boldly behind my pick or leave for 20 minutes and come back at the very tail end of the podcast and decide that I believe in it.
Frank, this used to happen to me all the time where I'd come in with an opinion and I'd listen to Dylan talk and I'd be like, actually, maybe I don't feel the way that I feel all the time. You gotta stand firm in your conviction. Say it with your
100%.
chest.
Yes, one time. You don't have to rewatch this movie before you die, but you have to watch it once.
That's not that's not what this podcast is predicated on. Is it or is it not a movie to watch at least once before you die?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Does it have heart?
Okay.
Miles and miles of heart?
It has miles and miles of heart. It has bros. It has football. It has America.
Okay. Dylan?
It's a movie that I've watched. I've probably watched this movie more than almost any other movie we watched on this podcast, based on the sheer amount of time that it was playing on TV as a child. And I wrote down, I feel kind of bad writing it down, but it's so true. This is a perfect second screen movie when you don't need to pay 100% attention, can show up at any time and like, oh, I can still continue watching right now from this moment of this movie. Like, it gives every scene, you may as well be being reintroduced to the characters because it's like, what's Clifford Franklin's one thing? Here it is again. Like, you know what I mean? It's definitely not a movie to watch before you die, but it's fun. It's fun. You like football? Yeah, you'll have fun. And you know what? They'll cut out some stuff for editing time when you watch it on TBS. It'll only be 2 hours with the commercials, and you don't really need to pay that much attention to the Annabelle scenes. A character who I can't believe got pulled out of her ass. Unbelievable, quite frankly.
That was impressive.
Thank you. I think it's crazier that you don't remember Annabelle the dog, but that's okay.
You're lucky I remember you, Gab.
Zach will remember. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Dylan's childhood trauma, everyone. So, I will say I definitely did not know anything about this movie coming into it. I did have pretty high expectations because I do think that Frank knows his shit and knows his movies and wouldn't pick a movie that was mediocre. But
I think she's about to shit on you, Frank.
No. I also thought that this movie was going to be akin to like a dodgeball type movie where it was going to be like really funny and maybe a little bit more modern and it was going to be like quotable like ha ha ha, and it was none of those things. It was not super romantic. I like a sports movie. I like a boy movie sometimes. This had nothing for me. It was not enjoyable. It wasn't even suspenseful. It was like the worst parts of Rudy, of that fucking Tom Cruise movie that we watched, of the what was it? The Jerry Maguire. It had the worst parts of
Didn't you like Jerry Maguire?
Yes, I did like Jerry Maguire, but it still had some parts that were the worst parts, and this encompassed that.
Okay.
And it was the worst parts of A League of Their Own, with absolutely no Tom Hanks, no Rosie O'Donnell, no Madonna. I couldn't pick Keanu Reeves out of a lineup. The girl's name was Annabelle. There were plot holes galore, and quite frankly, I hope I never turn on another television where it is streaming on TBS.
Well, I guarantee you it will happen. It might be on SNY. Next time there's a rain delay of a Mets game, they're going to be like, and here's the replacements.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm sorry, Frank. I love you very much, but this was not it for me.
Your reaction was worth it for me.
Yeah.
that alone has made this all worthwhile. Question for you, Gab. What would you rather rewatch, The Replacements or Rocky? This much thought alone is upsetting to me.
Can I kill myself? Is that an option?
Oh, God.
Probably Rocky, because I think at least, oh, God. See, Frank, I don't know if you listened to the Rocky episode, but my problem with Rocky was like, are we just going to ignore the fact that this man is mentally disabled?
The whole story of Rocky is that he's an invalid that becomes the world champion.
That is not.
I'm just like so uncomfortable. Like,
That is not the story of Rocky.
It's like Love on the Spectrum. You know what I mean?
He's
It's
he's a representative of someone from Philadelphia. More than 60% of people in Philadelphia can't read.
Oh my God, that is not what it's supposed to be.
But I do love Apollo Creed. What's his name from The Mandalorian?
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Great actor.
And from Arrested Development.
And former NFL player.
He was in Arrested Development?
He played Carl Weathers, Tobias's acting coach, and he always knew how to get a stew going.
That dude could get a stew going.
I vaguely remember this. We got to watch Arrested Development again. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm really sorry. It didn't do it for me. It was better than Rudy.
Oh my God. All right. Whatever.
I've never seen Rudy, so I agree.
Oh my God. You've never seen Rudy?
Rudy is great, Frank. It's great.
It
is inspirational. It is emotional. I could cry 6 times watching that movie, and I still love every goddamn second of it.
It's horrendous, and it makes you dumber and less attractive.
This conversation is making me dumber every time you open your mouth. Frank, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, please check out my Instagram, Neil Deadass Tyson. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but Deadass is in the middle of it. I am the writer, producer, and sometimes director of a series of short films on YouTube that's called Other Things. You can follow us and like us and subscribe at Kojak Films. Kojak, like that old cop from the 70s.
Played by Telly Savalas.
But I was thinking about his name.
He was the inspiration for the DCAU version of Lex Luthor.
All right, Dale, can I say the things that we say?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So if you would like to chime in, let us know what you think about this movie or any of the other movies that we have covered on this podcast. You can send us an email at moviestowatchbeforeyouDie@gmail.com. You can send us a voice note at anchor.fm/moviestowatch. And of course, you can find our friends from the Hall of Pods podcasting network in the link tree below, in which link tree you will also find a link to some pretty cool things like I was doing so well. A link.
You made some new word, linktus. It means to fight.
I'm sorry, guys. You can find a link to cool shit. I don't know, like our store. You can send me money on Venmo. Please, I'm begging you, send me just $1. Every dollar counts. And if you are thinking about writing an email, keep them short. We don't have all day.
For those 2 emails we get, we don't want them to be too long.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back again next week with another movie, hopefully one that is better than this one.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, shoot.
Why me?
I look at you and I see 2 men. The man you are, the man you ought to be. Someday those 2 will meet. Should make for a hell of a football player.